Yo, what's good guys? Welcome back to another video where today we'll be going over the match day 3 Champions League matches. We will speak about them, and close to the end we're gonna be sharing my predictions for all the games. So without further ado, let's get into Galatasaray versus Bayern. It's the first match of the week. Let's start off with Galatasaray. They are actually a good team. Managed to get a huge 3-2 win against Manchester United. Now that's a surprising win. On to Bayern, probably one of the favorites in the Champions League, I would say, and Kane has already been playing really good for the club, and they have a real chance this year in the Champions League, in my opinion. And my prediction is going to be a 4-1 win for Bayern. We move on to Inter versus Salzburg. Now, this is looking like a pretty good matchup over here. Let's start with Inter. Last year they were in the final, but they lost to Manchester City. Beats Benfica 1-0 in their last Champions League game. And the team is still playing pretty good. And on to Salzburg, I would say pretty underrated team. They have had many players sold to big clubs. They lost 2-0 to Sociedad in the last match day. And my prediction is going to be like a 3-1 win for Inter. Now we move on to Union Berlin versus Napoli. Now I'm looking forward to this match. Let's start with Union Berlin. I would say they're a good team. Did well in the Europa League last season, a underdog in my opinion for sure. On to Napoli. We all know how strong they are. I thought they would win the Champions League or at least get to the final last year. But unfortunately, they did not. They lost a key player in Kim Min-jae to Bayern. Now I think Napoli is going to win this game 2-0. Now we move on to Sevilla versus Arsenal. I'm expecting a pretty good matchup here. So let's start with Sevilla. The reigning Europa League winners. They were the underdogs last year, and they could be underdogs as well this year in the Champions League. On to Arsenal. They have been a good team, although they did lose 2-1 to Lens, and Lens played better. You gotta give it to them, gotta give credit. Fair play to them, and I think my prediction is gonna be a 2-1 win for Arsenal in this game. Now we move on to Braga versus Real Madrid. This should be a easy game for Real Madrid. Let's start off with Braga. They've been not bad. I would say managed to win 3-2 against Union Berlin. So I think they will struggle against Real Madrid. On to Real Madrid. We all know how good they are. Bellingham, probably one of the best players in the world at the moment. He just keeps on scoring, and he's playing like midfield, kind of like Cam. Incredible. And my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for Real Madrid. Now we move on to Lens versus PSV. Seems like it will be a tight one. So let's start with Lens. They have been pretty good. They beat Arsenal 2-1 as we mentioned before, and I can't lie, they played really well in that game. On to PSV, they haven't had the best start. They have one draw and a loss so far in the competition. They lost some key players as well recently, and my prediction is gonna be a 2-0 win for Lens. Now we have Benfica versus Real Sociedad. Another pretty good matchup. Start with Benfica. They have had a bad start so far. 2 losses in 2 games, and they lost Gonzalo Ramos to PSG. And on to Real Sociedad. On the other hand, they are having a pretty good start in this competition so far. They drew 1-1 with Inter, and definitely a team that could go under the radar and surprise us here. And in my opinion, you gotta look out for this team. And my prediction is gonna be a 2-1 win for Real Sociedad. And we have Manchester United versus Copenhagen. This will be a interesting one to watch. as Man United are kind of struggling in this competition. They lost both their games to Bayern and also Galatasaray. And Højlund does look pretty decent. He already has 2 goals in the Champions League. On to Copenhagen. They're a not bad team. They could be a underrated team in this competition or in that group, and they lost 2-1 to Bayern, which was fairly tight. But my prediction is going to be a 3-1 win for Manchester United. Now we move on to Barca versus Shakhtar Donetsk. I see Barca dominating this one, so let's start with Barca. They have been a standout team in my opinion. They started with a strong 5-0 win in the Champions League, and the way the team plays, Xavi has them playing really well. On to Shakhtar. This team is performing okay. In my opinion, they are missing the Zerbi, as he was the one who got them those wins against Real Madrid almost every single Champions League campaign. And my prediction is going to be a 3-0 win for Barca. Now we have Feyenoord versus Lazio. This should be a interesting one. So let's start with Feyenoord. They were a underrated team last year. They did well in the Europa League, and it seems like they're doing decent in the Champions League as well. On to Lazio. They're doing pretty well in this competition. They have 1 draw and a win so far, so this matchup will be a great one in my opinion, and I see this game ending as a 1-1 draw. Now we have probably one of the biggest games this week, and that is Newcastle versus Dortmund. So Newcastle, they have been doing well in the Champions League. They beat PSG in a surprising 4-1 win. That was surprising for me, to be fair. And Isak was such a good signing for them. He, whenever he plays, he just balls out, like scores goals. He's really good at taking on his man, especially for like a striker. It's impressive. And to Dortmund, they're struggling quite a bit. They lost another key player in Bellingham, and without a win in the group stages at the moment, Dortmund. And my prediction is going to be a 3-1 win for Newcastle. Now we have RB Leipzig versus Red Star. This should be a interesting one, but let's start with Leipzig doing well in the Champions League. They always have been a underrated team. They lost Szoboszlai to Liverpool, where he's been balling at Liverpool, to be fair. Onto Red Star, not doing too well in this competition so far. I think they're probably one of the worst teams in the competition, and they have no wins in the group stages at the moment. But I see Leipzig winning this game 3-1. Now we have Young Boys versus Manchester City. This should be a easy game for City. So let's start with the Young Boys. They are struggling in this competition. One of the weakest teams in my opinion. But anything can happen in football, so maybe they could turn up this time. To Manchester City, I mean, we all know how good they are. Treble winners from last season. And Haaland, dangerous man. Obviously up top, a top striker, and my prediction is going to be a 4-1 win for Manchester City. Now we have PSG versus AC Milan. Now this game is the biggest game this match day. So let's start with PSG. On paper, they look really good, but I feel like on the pitch they don't play as well as they look on paper. And in my opinion, they should be doing better than they are right now, but it might take some time for the team to gel, who knows. And they lost 4-1 to Newcastle in their last game. On to AC Milan, the semi-finalists from last season. They are looking good, and Leao is a player that you have to watch. Like, he is really good, and PSG gotta look out for Leao. He's such an incredible player. Now, my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for AC Milan. Now we move on to Celtic versus Atletico Madrid. Now, this should be a win for Atletico Madrid. Let's start with Celtic. They are struggling bad. They don't have a win yet. Only scored 1 goal in the group stages. On to Atletico Madrid. Fairly good team. As they always say, Diego Simeone loves to park his bus, or loves to have his team just like deep. And Joao Felix was loaned to Barca, and apparently he's been balling there, which is good. And my prediction is going to be a 2-1 win for Atletico Madrid. We move on to Antwerp versus Porto, the last and final game of this match day. And I think it'll be a tight game. So let's start with Antwerp. Another team struggling pretty hard. Conceded 8 goals in 2 games so far. That is not good. And it got slapped 5-0 by Barcelona in their first game. On to Porto. They're doing okay. They could be a underrated team as well. And we all know Taremi is a threat up front for Porto. But I see Porto winning this game 2-1. So thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to drop a like. Comment down below what your predictions are. And don't forget to subscribe as well. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.